any reason for you to evacuate the chamber, use either of the two exit doors. People who use the door located next to the public gallery are advised to proceed through the lobby to the front doors, down the main staircase to the muster point at James Park.
It's that time again, Tobago, and this one is going to be big. April 30th, 2026 will mark the 250th anniversary of the main ridge being designated the oldest legally protected rainforest reserve in the Western Hemisphere. The commemoration of this milestone represents an opportunity for us to collectively reaffirm Tobago's leadership in environmental protection, climate resilience, and sustainable land management in the Caribbean and globally. Secretary of Environment, Climate Resilience and Energy, Darren Henry, will lay a motion seeking the approval of the House to declare April 30th as Main Ridge Day annually and create activities to formally observe the 250th anniversary of the legal protection of Tobago's rainforests. We convene on Wednesday, March 25th at 10 a.m. Our doors are open and channels are clear. You can either come in or tune in. Either way, don't miss this landmark event.
What I'm looking forward for my
Let us now pray. O Almighty God, as we have come together to begin our meeting of the Assembly, we humbly beseech you to grant to all our members the light and guidance of your Holy Spirit, that we may wisely take counsel together and come to such decisions as shall promote your glory and the well-being of all our citizens in this our land, so that peace and happiness, truth and justice may be enjoyed by all people. Grant this for the sake of Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. And now we sit.
Oath of allegiance of a new member. Announcements by the presiding officer.
Leave of absence has been granted to Assembly Member Natisha Charles Panton and Petal Ann Roberts.
Assembly bills sent back from Cabinet. Assembly laws brought back from Parliament. Petitions, papers.
Mr. Presiding Officer, on behalf of the Secretary of Finance, I stand to lay the Tobago House of Assembly monthly budget report for December 2025.
Presentation of reports from the Dispute Resolution Commission, select committees. Chief Secretary questions, questions to secretaries, questions for oral answer. Requests for leave to move the adjournment of the Assembly on definite matters of urgent public importance. Statements by secretaries or assistant secretaries. Personal explanations. Introduction of bills. Motions relating to the business or sittings of the Assembly and moved by a secretary or assistant secretary. Public business. Motion.
Pleasant good morning, Mr. Presiding Officer. Pleasant good morning to my colleagues in this August House, persons seated in the gallery, persons online. Special good morning to my electoral district of Bethel New Grange, who would have supported me and put their trust in me on the 12th of January at the Tobago House of Assembly elections. I would also like to thank the Chief Secretary, Mr. Farley Chavez Augustine, for giving me the opportunity to move my first motion as an Assembly member, and also as the Secretary of the Division of Environment, Climate Resilience, and Energy in the Tobago House of Assembly on a matter that I love and I hold deeply in my heart. So, Mr. Presiding Officer, I seek leave at Standing Order 42-7 to read extract for my presentation. Mr. Presiding Officer and honorable members of this House, I rise today with a deep sense of duty, pride, and historical awareness to lend my full and unwavering support to this motion before this House. This is not an ordinary motion, nor is it merely procedural. It is not a symbolic in any shallows or fleeting sense. It is, Mr. Presiding Officer, a motion that asks us to recognize, to honor, and to institutionalize one of the most profound decisions ever taken in the history of Tobago. Indeed, one of the most visionary acts of environmental governance in the world, I dare say. On the 30th day of April in the year 1776, Tobago's Mainridge Forest Reserve was placed under legal protection. At that moment, Tobago did something extraordinary. It chose restraint over exploitation. It chose foresight over short-term gain. It chose good environmental stewardship over extraction. In doing so, it established what is widely regarded as the oldest legally protected rainforest in the Western Hemisphere. Mr. Presiding Officer, we must pause and reflect on what that means. At a time when forests across the world were being cleared without hesitation, at a time when the dominant philosophy treated land as something to be conquered and consumed, at a time when there was little scientific language to describe ecosystems, biodiversity, or climate, Tobago acted decisively in support of sustainable development. We acted because we understood that forests were essential to rainfall and that a consistent and reliable supply of potable water for domestic, agricultural, and ecological purposes depended on the forest vegetation. We understood that our dignified survival as a people depended on ecological balance, that simple put powerful and enduring insight in the foundation upon which we stand today. Mr. Presiding Officer, the legislation of 1776 spoke of making the rains inalienable. That phrase, though rooted in the language of its time, captures a truth that modern science now confirms with a high degree of certainty. It confirms that forests regulate rainfall, forests protect watersheds, and forests sustains life. What was once intuition is now evidence. What was once foresight is now global consensus. Yet, 250 years later, the question before us is not whether that decision was correct. The question before us is whether we are worthy of it. Whether we, in this generation, will honor that legacy not merely in words, but in action. Mr. Presiding Officer, the Mainridge Forest Reserve is not simply a forest area on a map. It is the ecological heart of Tobago, stretching approximately 17 kilometers, rising to elevations of over 604 meters, and covering nearly 13% of the island's landmass. The Mainridge forms the backbone of our island. It is the green spine that helps in no small way in shaping our climate, feeding our rivers, stabilizing our soils, and defining our landscape. Within this reserve exists a remarkable diversity of ecosystems, including lower mountain rainforests, lowland rainforests, and xerophytic rainforests. Each of these ecosystems is shaped by subtle variations in altitude, rainfall, temperature, and wind exposed, and within these ecosystems lies extraordinary life. Mr. Presiding Officer, the Mainridge supports 163 species, 16 known endemic plants, over 100 species of birds, dozens of mammals, reptiles, amphibians, and fish, and countless invertebrates, many still unknown to science. However, perhaps most importantly, it supports endemic species which are species found nowhere else on Earth. This is not merely biodiversity, this is global heritage. This is life that exists here, and only here, and once lost, it cannot be replaced. Mr. Presiding Officer, too often we speak of wealth in narrow economic terms. We speak of revenue, we speak of investment, and we speak of life output. As a progressive people, it is incumbent upon us to broaden our understanding of wealth to include, in a fundamental way, nature capital, which is becoming increasingly relevant globally. Our biodiversity is wealth. A forest rich in species is a forest rich in resilience to assist us in facing the most serious of ecological, environmental, and economic challenges of our time. A resilient forest is a forest that can withstand shocks, and a resilient forest supports a resilient society. The Mainridge is therefore not only an ecological asset, but it is also a strategic asset. It is a natural system that supports pollination, soil fertility, water regulation, and climate moderation. In other words, it supports the very foundation upon which our economy and society depends. Mr. Presiding Officer, we live in a time of unprecedented environmental challenges, climate change, which is globally considered to be the defining sustainable development challenge of our time. It is no longer a distant concern. It is here with us. It is manifested in changing rainfall patterns, increasing temperatures, more intense weather events, and greater environmental uncertainty. In this context of meeting the climate challenge, the Mainridge Forest Reserve stands as one of Tobago's greatest allies. Forests such as the Mainridge sequester carbon, which helps to mitigate climate change, regulate temperature, hereby reducing heat stress, stabilize ecosystem, enhancing resilience in the process, and protect against erosion and landslide. However, beyond mitigation, the Mainridge is critical for adaptation. It helps Tobago adjust to changing conditions. It provides stability in an unstable world. In essence, Mr. Presiding Officer, the Mainridge Forest Reserve is a form of natural infrastructure, one that we did not build, but one that we must maintain in an effort to secure a sustainable future for current and future generations. Mr. Presiding Officer, If there is one function of the main ridge that every Tobagonian can understand, it is that the main ridge gives us water. From within the reserve originate multiple watersheds and rivers that supply communities across the island. The forest acts as a natural regulator, absorbing rainfall, storing water, releasing it gradually, preventing floods during heavy rains, and sustaining flows during dry periods. Without this system, Tobago will face severe water insecurity. Accordingly, when we speak of protecting the main ridge, we are speaking of protecting something fundamental. We are speaking about protecting water for homes, water for agriculture, water for industry, and water for future generations. Mr. Presiding Officer, the main ridge is also central to Tobago's economic fortunes. It is obvious that our strength does not lie in mass tourism. It lies in quality, authenticity, and uniqueness. In this regard, the main ridge offers world-class bird watching, scenic hiking trails, pristine rivers and waterfalls, opportunities for research and education, and a sense of tranquility that is increasingly rare in the modern world. These are not incidental features. They are core components of Tobago's tourism product. Visitors come to Tobago not just for sea, sun, and sand, but for real transformative experiences. The main ridge is at the heart of that experience. Further, Mr. Presiding Officer, it supports sustainable livelihoods by creating opportunities for tour guides, small business operators, hospitality providers, transport services, and cultural entrepreneurs, among others, to earn income which contribute to the general socio-economic well-being of the island. This is what sustainable developments look like. Development that does not destroy the resource, but depends on its conservation to achieve sustainable socio-economic outcomes. Mr. Presiding Officer, beyond economics, the main ridge holds deep social and cultural meaning for all Tobagonians. It is a place of recreation, reflection, healing, and connection. For generations, Tobagonians have turned to the forest for renewal. Likewise, it is also a place of culture as manifested in folklore, oral tradition, herbal medicine practices, and spiritual beliefs. Stories of forest spirits, sacred trees, and ancestral knowledge are not incidental. They are part of our cultural fabric. The main ridge is therefore not only an ecological landscape, it is a significant cultural landscape for the people of Tobago. Mr. Presiding Officer, it is also important that we recognize that the significance of the main ridge forest reserve has not gone unnoticed beyond our shores, but has been consistently affirmed through national designation, regional accolades, and international recognition over many years. In 2019, the reserve was formally declared a natural national heritage site by the National Trust of Trinidad and Tobago, cementing its status as one of the most important protected natural assets in the Republic. That same year, in 2019, it was awarded the title of Caribbean Nature Park of the Year by Green Caribbean Awards, a distinction conferred by Caribbean Journal in recognition of its outstanding ecological value and contribution to sustainable tourism. Earlier, the main ridge and Tobago's ecotourism product received the global acclaim through the World Travel Awards, where Tobago was recognized as the world-leading ecotourism destination for 4 consecutive years, from 2003 to 2006, highlighting the central role of the main ridge in that achievement. The reserve has also been identified as an important birding area by international conservation organizations, reflecting its critical role in avian biodiversity, and was nominated to the UNESCO World Heritage Tentative List in 2011. Further underscoring the global significance, the main ridge has been included in the prestigious Queen's Commonwealth Canopy, an initiative that highlights forests of exceptional conservation value across the Commonwealth. Collectively, these recognitions affirm that the Main Ridge Forest Reserve is not only a source of national pride, but a globally respected symbol of environmental stewardship, whose conservation remains a matter of both local duty and responsibility, as well as a matter of international interest. Mr. Presiding Officer, we must speak honestly. The Main Ridge faces real threats development challenges, pollution, illegal resource extraction, climate change, and invasive species. Perhaps the greatest challenge has been fragmented management. Too many responsibilities, too little coordination, too limited engagement of stakeholders, and that is why governance matters. It is in this context that the Tobago House of Assembly's intention to endorse and support the establishment of a multi-secretarial trust called the Tobago Biosphere Management Alliance must be understood. While the Main Ridge Tobago Forest Reserve remains under established legal frameworks, it forms a critical part of the wider Northeast Tobago Biosphere Reserve. TOBIMA represents a modern, inclusive approach to governance which helps to strengthen the management of the Main Ridge by improving coordination among agencies, facilitating co-management arrangement with stakeholders, enhancing data-driven decision-making, supporting sustainable livelihoods, and promoting accountability and transparency. This progressive management model moves us away from fragmented management and towards integrated stewardship, and importantly, it recognizes that conservation cannot succeed without people. Communities must be partners, stakeholders must be meaningfully involved, and acknowledgement must be shared to the benefit of all. At this 250-year juncture, the introduction of this inclusive management model is an appropriate way to mark the end of an era and transition to new, improved, accountable, and more relevant governance and institutional arrangements to support the sustainability of the Main Ridge as one of the premier natural assets in Northeast Tobago, on which we depend for our socio-economic well-being. Mr. Presiding Officer, this motion is both timely and necessary. It does three fundamental things. First, it mandates the formal commemoration of a globally significant milestone. Second, it established Main Ridge Day as an annual observance. Third, it reaffirms Tobago's leadership in environmental stewardship. However, beyond that, it sends a message to the nation, regional and international community. It says that Tobago values its natural heritage, that we are committed to protecting it, and that we understand that our future depends on it. In conclusion, Mr. Presiding Officer, 250 years ago, Tobago made a decision that placed us ahead of our time. Today, as the Secretary of Environment, Climate Resilience and Energy, I would like to state that we have an opportunity and indeed a responsibility to honor that legacy. The Main Ridge Forest Reserve is our ecological shield, our water source, our biodiversity sanctuary, our cultural inheritance, and an important economic opportunity for us all. It is not just part of our past, it is also central to our future. Let us therefore not treat this anniversary lightly. Let us mark it with purpose. Let us institutionalize it through the Mainridge Day. Let us strengthen its governance. Let us engage our people. Let us conserve what has been entrusted to us, and let us ensure that 250 years from now, future generation can stand where we stand and say that we did not fail them. Mr. Presiding Officer, I commend this motion to the House and seek the support and endorsement of all members of this honorable House accordingly. Mr. Presiding Officer, I beg to move this motion standing in my name. I thank you.
Members, the question proposed is, whereas Tobago is the home to the oldest legally protected rainforest reserve in the Western Hemisphere, established by law on the 30th April 1776, representing a pioneering act of environmental conservation. And whereas this historic legislation affirmed the intrinsic value of Tobago's main ridge forest reserve as a vital ecological asset, safeguarding biodiversity, water resources, climate stability, and the cultural heritage of the people of Tobago. And whereas for 250 years, the protection of the rainforest has contributed to Tobago's identity as a steward of nature, supporting livelihoods through ecotourism, research, education, and sustainable development. And whereas the commemoration of this milestone on the 30th of April 2026 presents an opportunity to reaffirm Tobago's leadership in environmental protection, climate resilience, and sustainable land management in the Caribbean and globally. And whereas it is fitting that the Tobago House of Assembly recognizes, celebrates, and institutionalizes this milestone in a manner that inspires present and future generations to continue the legacy of conservation. Be it resolved that the Tobago House of Assembly mandates the Division of Environment, Climate Resilience, and Energy, in collaboration with relevant stakeholders, to design and implement a suite of activities to formally commemorate the 250th anniversary of the legal protection of Tobago's rainforest on the 30th of April 2026. And be it resolved that this House of Assembly establishes the 30th of April annually as Main Ridge Day in Tobago, commemorating the 1776 legislation and promoting environmental stewardship among all citizens. And be it further resolved that this Honorable House calls upon the Government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, regional partners, and international environmental organizations to recognize and support Tobago's historic and ongoing leadership in rainforests. Member for Bethesda Leketu, you may now join the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. And before I start, I would like to thank the residents of Bethesda, the homes of Adventia, Leketo, Golden Lane, and Woodlands for granting me not one, not two, but a third opportunity to serve them as a representative of their hopes and aspirations. And I would also like to thank colleagues for the opportunity to bring my maiden presentation in this term of the Assembly. Mr. Presiding Officer, and I have to be very careful that I don't say Madam. It keeps being at the tip of my tongue. Mr. Presiding Officer, I rise in steadfast support of this motion as Secretary of Tourism, Antiquities, and Creative Industries. And I do so not only to honor this historic milestone, but to position Tobago with clarity, with intention, and with strategic purpose in a rapidly evolving global landscape. Mr. Presiding Officer, what we are considering today is not simply an exercise in commemoration. It is a moment of alignment between history and opportunity, between preservation and progress, and between who we have been and who we must now become. The establishment of the Main Ridge Forest Reserve on April 30th, and yes, we're correcting the record from April 13th to April 30th, and the Honorable Chief Secretary would speak some more about that in his contribution. April 30th, 1776, was a decision, might we dare say, grounded in foresight. Long before sustainability became policy, and long before conservation became global doctrine, Tobago did it first. It was governance informed by understanding, Mr. Presiding Officer. Understanding that the environmental protection of a people is not separate from its development, but foundational to it. Now, 250 years later, we, the people of Tobago, must ask ourselves, how do we translate that legacy into modern value? Because, Mr. Presiding Officer, heritage that is not activated becomes history. But heritage that is structured, interpreted, and positioned becomes economic, educational, and my favorite, global capital. Mr. Presiding Officer, Tobago's recognition under the UNESCO Man and the Biosphere Program fundamentally elevates this conversation. This designation is not symbolic. It is scientific, it is technical, and it is policy-driven recognition. It confirms that Tobago operates within a global framework where three functions must coexist. One, conservation of biodiversity. Two, sustainable economic development. And three, logistical support for research, education, and knowledge sharing. What does this mean for Tobago? It means that Tobago is not just to be seen as a destination. We are a living laboratory, a demonstration site, a model of balance between environment and economy. And Mr. Presiding Officer, when you combine 250 years of protected rainforest governance with international biosphere designation, you are no longer speaking about a local asset. You're now speaking about a globally competitive positioning platform, and this is what Tobago is. Mr. Presiding Officer, the global tourism market is no longer driven by mere attractions only. No, it is now driven by distinctiveness, and the attractions must be offered by the destination that culminates in experiences. In our region alone, there are countless destinations offering the proverbial sun, sand, and sea. And for far too long, Caribbean tourism has leaned heavily on a single narrative. And while Tobago's coastlines are exceptional, it cannot be the only pillar of our tourism economy, because resilience and reliance on a single product is not strategy. No, it is vulnerability. What Tobago possesses, therefore, is something far superior and far more valuable. Geographical and experiential diversity within a single destination. Within minutes, one can transition from coastal ecosystems to dense protected rainforest, from marine biodiversity to terrestrial biodiversity, from leisure tourism to exploratory, research-based, and educational tourism. And this allows Tobago to participate in multiple tourism markets simultaneously. Ecotourism, educational, scientific, and research-based tourism, wellness tourism, heritage tourism, experiential and immersive tourism, and of course, sport tourism. That is not common. That is strategic advantage. And because of this, our Caribbean neighbors who can boast of sun, sand, and sea, we have something else that we can place on the table. A legally protected rainforest dating back to 1776, a UNESCO-aligned biosphere framework, a living integration of ecology, heritage, and community. And this is where Tobago must be precise. We cannot market ourselves in the same way our competitors do. We must market ourselves as specific, as rare, as purposeful, as beyond ordinary, because modern travelers are not passive. They are informed, they are intentional, and they are value-driven. And they are now asking, what is unique about your destination? What is protected there? What does your nation, your island, your space stand for? What added value will you benefit when you visit this destination? And Tobago has powerful and impactful responses for each of these questions. Mr. Presiding Officer, the mandate of the Division of Tourism, Antiquities, and Creative Industries is not simply to promote Tobago. We must also build systems that would allow Tobago to perform competitively and sustainably globally. And that is why the Department of Antiquities is so critical. Because tourism without heritage governance leads to misrepresentation, overuse and exploitation, and cultural dilution. But tourism supported by structured heritage, the tourism we aim for, leads to authentic experiences, sustainable use, and long-term value creation. Mr. Presiding Officer, the Department of Antiquities represents a shift from activity to architecture. Its mandate, policy, research, site management, and public education creates this framework. And Mr. Presiding Officer, this framework is necessary to support heritage-based tourism. And the declaration of Mainridge Day becomes the operational platform for that system. Through the division, we will advance a comprehensive heritage registry and inventory. We will establish interpretation standards for heritage sites. We will collaborate with the Division of Environment, Climate Resilience, and the Environment, as well as the Division of Education, Skills, and Innovation to integrate heritage into our education systems. We will strengthen legislative protections and access to protocols. And all of this will ensure that the heritage sites are not episodic, but institutionalized. Mr. Presiding Officer, as I continue, it must be noted that tourism today is not only physical, it is digital. Decisions are made long before the actual tourist arrives on island. And destinations that fail to exist meaningfully in the digital space are simply overlooked. And this is why, through the Tobago Tourism Agency Limited, or TTAL, we are advancing an immersive digital Mainridge experience for this year's commemorative activity. And this would be done by leveraging Google Street View and virtual reality. And this initiative will digitally capture the rainforest ecosystem, create 360-degree navigational experiences, provide global access to Tobago's interior, and Mr. Presiding Officer, these are three critical things. It expands market reach beyond physical travel. It enhances pre-arrival engagement. And it positions Tobago as an innovative destination. But more importantly for all of us, it aligns directly with the biosphere function of education and research dissemination. Mr. Presiding Officer, if the environment is the asset and tourism is the platform, then the creative industries are the engines of this interpretation and value capture. Because people do not connect with data, they connect with stories. And those stories must be told by Tobagonians. We are therefore positioning Mainridge Day as a commissioning platform for film and digital storytelling, music rooted in environmental themes, craft inspired by biodiversity, and performance and immersive theater. But critically, this will be structured through a creative register, intellectual property training, and market access pathways. And we will ensure that creatives are not just participating, but are also benefiting economically. Mr. Presiding Officer and my dear colleagues, there is another critical dimension to this discussion. Climate resilience is no longer optional. I'm going to say that again. Climate resilience in today's world is no longer optional. It is a defining global priority. And Tobago, through its environmental stewardship and biosphere status, is already positioned within that space. This means we are not only a tourism destination, we are a climate-conscious destination, a sustainability leader, a model for small island development. And this alignment strengthens investor confidence, it strengthens research partnerships, and it strengthens international visibility. Mr. Presiding Officer, this initiative is not being executed in isolation. No, it is a part of a broader institutional transformation towards stronger governance, clearer accountability, and measurable outcomes. Mainridge Day will therefore be delivered through guidance from this administration's strategic development planning pathway, which includes defined roles across divisions, coordinated stakeholder engagement, clear outputs and timelines, and monitoring and evaluation systems. Success of the aforementioned initiatives will not be measured by applause. No, it will be measured by outcomes. A strengthened heritage registry and documentation system, increased public education and awareness, and of course, we're depending on the Division of Education Skills and Innovation to assist us here, expanded digital tourism assets, greater creative industry participation and earnings, improved global positioning and visibility, and stronger institutional coordination. Mr. Presiding Officer, 250 years ago, Tobago made a decision that placed it ahead of its time. Today, we have the opportunity to demonstrate that we are still ahead of our time. Not by chance, not by sentiment, but by strategy, by structure, and of course, by execution. This motion, and I want to commend you, Secretary, with the responsibility for the environment, climate resilience, and energy, also supported by the Honorable Chief Secretary for such a timely and critical motion. It allows us to do more than to be commemorative. It allows us to define Tobago's place in the future of global tourism. And that is a responsibility that we must meet, and all of us at that, with clarity and with purpose, if we truly believe in this quest to make Tobago the greatest little island on the planet. I thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer, and I thank you, my colleagues.
Member for Signal Patience, you may now join the debate.
Mr. Presiding Officer, honorable colleagues, those who are viewing online, good morning. I remain humbled by the support of my beautiful district of Signal Hill, Patience Hill, which comprises of Orange Hills, Spring Garden, and part of Lambo and Union. I stand tall today as the area representative for a second term. I thank the people for this opportunity and pledge my unwavering commitment to continue to speak. Yes, sir, I reach there yet, sir. I'll be asking to invoke Standing Order 42.7. which will come after I thank my people, sir, for giving me a second term in office. Okay, sir. Mr. Presiding Officer, I wish to invoke Standing Order 42.7, please.
Granted.
Nice. As I continue, I want to thank the people of my beautiful electoral district for this opportunity and pledge my unwavering commitment to continue to speak and act on their behalf for the betterment of my community and also Tobago in general. I was no one asking, but go ahead. Mr. Presiding Officer, as the Assistant Secretary in the Office of the Chief Secretary, I rise in full support of this most important and timely motion. Let me begin by commending the Secretary of the Division of Environment, Climate Resilience, and Energy for bringing this motion before this Honorable House. It is a motion that speaks for merely to history, but to identity, to who we are as a people, and to the values we wish to carry forward into the next 250 years. Mr. Presiding Officer, in 1776, the same year that the United States of America declared its independence, Tobago did something equally remarkable and arguably more precedent. Our forebears enacted a legislation to protect the Mainridge Forest Reserve, recognizing the health of the land was inseparable from the health of the people. This piece of legislation was the original climate policy aimed at microclimate control. Our predecessors understood that forests attract rain. This first installation of Mainridge Day, carried for 30th of April 2026, recognizes that this piece of real estate in Tobago, natural life support system, and every time Tobagonians protect a watershed or plant a tree or adopt green tech, they are co-authoring that 200 years old policy. The protection of the rainforest is integral to the safety and security of the people of Tobago. The Mainridge is more than a forest. It is our shield, our sustainer, as it safeguards our water supply, stabilizes our climate, and preserves a rich biodiversity that is rare and irreplaceable. This protected treasure also offers medical values, psychological restoration, and economic potential through tourism and research, positioning it not only as an environmental asset, but a powerful driver of innovation and long-term prosperity of our people. A Tobago without a Mainridge creates vulnerabilities such as increased risk of flooding, landslides, water scarcity, and food insecurity. These in turn can lead to displacement, social instability, and increased pressures on already strained communities. Mr. Presiding Officer, when we fail to protect our environment, we inadvertently compromise the security and safety of our people. Conversely, a protected and well-managed environment strengthens resilience. Mr. Presiding Officer, forgive me for saying, but one unintended positive outcome of the COVID-19 period was a temporary recovery observed across our natural ecosystem. Reduced human activity allowed sections of the natural world to regenerate. Air quality improved, wildlife patterns shifted, and fragile marine environments showed signs of renewal. During this period, we were reminded of natural resilience when given the opportunity to recover. This observation is particularly relevant to Tobago, and more specifically, the Boko Reef. As one of the island's most vulnerable ecological and economic assets, Boko Reef continues to face mounting pressures from coastal development, pollution, and climate change. Scientific evidence globally suggests that without deliberate intervention, coral reef systems risk long-term degradation or collapse. Mr. Presiding Officer, I can hear the reef operators lambasting my name at this time. Reason why? My first term in office, I was the Assistant Secretary in the Division of Food Security, Natural Resources, the Environment, and Sustainable Development. I was given the opportunity of Marine Resources and Fisheries. Whilst there, the division tried our best to protect the Boko Reef. But for some reason or the other, our reef operators always find a way to beat the system. So that's why I'm saying now that I can hear them lambasting my name, because the Boko Reef normally closes off, or supposed to close off at 6 p.m. But we all know of the activities that used to take place beyond 6 p.m., which created pollution to our reef. A noteworthy international precedent is the temporary closure of Maya Bay in Thailand, where authorities restricted access for 4 years to allow the ecosystem to rehabilitate. Despite significant economic loss, reportedly in the billions, the closure resulted in measurable ecological recovery, including coral regrowth and the return in the aquatic ecosystem. Mr. Presiding Officer, given Tobago ridge to ocean model for climate adaptation, it may be prudent that my colleague and I in the Assembly consider a similar structured, time-bounded restoration initiative for Boko Reef. While a proposed closure period will understandably generate resistance from our reef-dependent stakeholders, the long-term sustainability of the reef must remain the priority. Such decision cannot be taken in isolation. To mitigate economic fallout and social stability, we, the Tobago House Assembly, must simultaneously pursue alternative strategies such as 1, development of a blue economy framework to include investing in sustainable marine industry such as marine research, aquaculture, and conservation-based employment. 2, stakeholder compensation and retaining programs, providing financial support, skills development, and transitions pathway for those directly affected. And 3, growth expansion initiatives for other reefs, substituting the Boko Reef, coral reef upgrading to other reefs and marine ecosystem around Tobago. Through difficult proactive action, now may prevent irreversible damages and secure environmental sustainability and future economic stability in Tobago. Mr. Presiding Officer, let me return to our main rich forest reserve based on my colleague's motion. So I'm coming off the Boko Reef for a little bit. Mr. Presiding Officer, from the perspective of property and real estate, the existence of the main rich forest reserve as a legal protected area for 250 years has a profound implication for the planning and development of Tobago. The reserve represents a deliberate decision by those who came before us to hold certain lands in trust for all of Tobago, not for private gain, but for collective benefit. The principle of custodianship resonates strongly within my portfolio as we discharge our responsibilities in respect of public property and state lands. We are not merely administrators of lands. We are stewardship of a public inheritance, and the main ridge is the oldest and most distinguished expression of the principle of this island. As we strive to become the greatest eco-island on this planet, the island's survival depends on green infrastructure and community-led resilience strategies. We must invest more into planning, development, and integrating natural systems into our work environment, schools, and communities. This will result in reduced heat, managed water, improved air quality, and enhanced community well-being and aesthetics. Mr. Presiding Officer, there has been a noticeable escalation of youth delinquency and violence within schools across Tobago. This social crisis demands proactive and innovative solutions. One such solution is the Peace Green Initiative, developed by the United Nations as a forward-thinking intervention program. A peace garden is a structured school-based strategy that integrates the environment with peace education to positively transform students' behavior. With these dedicated spaces, the claiming influence of nature is intentionally replicated to provide students with a safe environment for reflection, emotional regulation, and conflict resolution. Through activities such as gardening, teamwork, and guided discussions, students develop empathy, responsibility, respect, and other skills that are critical in reducing aggression and fostering a culture of peace within our schools. Mr. Presiding Officer, our Caribbean neighbors, including Jamaica and Antigua and Barbuda, have successfully implemented these initiatives. In Jamaica alone, over 100 schools have adopted peace gardenings, particularly in high-risk communities, resulting in measurable reduction in aggression, improved disciplinary outcomes, enhanced mental well-being, and stronger peer relationships. The evidence is clear. When we invest in nurturing environments, we cultivate better behaviors. Mr. Presiding Officer, in the Tobago space, I envision adopting this concept in line with a Tobago culture by providing areas of environmental therapy, reflection, and emotional regulations, making resources available to provide conflict resolution tools and guided activities to address behavioral issues. We must create environments for our young boys and girls to de-escalate conflicts, reflect, and engage in positive, inclusive social interactions. We must move beyond punishment and embrace prevention by empowering our youths and tools to manage today's activities. You see, Mr. Presiding Officer, development without a Tobago's party blueprint is not progress. It is a risk like spinning top in mud, and that is where the difference lies. Today, under the leadership and direction of my esteemed colleagues, led by Honorable Farley Chavez Agustin, and also with the responsibility for the General Environment, Climate, Resilience, and Energy, Mr. Darren Henry, we are not speaking in isolated ideas, we are speaking in integrated, sustainable strategies. Mr. Presiding Officer, excuse my Tobago parlance. Darren Henry, Master of the Forest, also known as the Bushman. The main ridge is his second home. So who else to better design and implement international or intentional strategic plans whilst balancing preservation with sustainable development? Mr. Presiding Officer, when we were all young, we heard about the movie Tarzan, King of the Jungle. Well, today, after experiencing hikes and going to Little Tobago whilst I was his colleague at the Division of Food Security. I want to say that Tobago also have a Tarzan. But I will more call him the man of the environment and forest. Mr. Presiding Officer, this motion rightly calls upon the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, regional partners, and international environmental organizations to recognize and support Tobago's history and ongoing leadership in rainforest conversations. I wish to add my voice clearly to that call. The Mainridge Forest Reserve is not merely a Tobago asset. It is a Caribbean asset. It is a global asset in a world where rainforests are disappearing at an alarming rate, where biodiversity loss is accelerating, and where the link between deforestation and climate vulnerability is scientifically undeniable. The fact that Tobago has maintained and protected the primary rainforest for 2.5 centuries is a story that the world needs to hear. For too long, Tobago has been viewed as the lesser of the twin islands between the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Yet history continues to magnify our achievements of this little and Talawa landmass. Mr. Presiding Officer, policymakers were forward-thinking in their approach to governance and development. This anniversary presents a diplomatic opportunity to position Tobago as a leader in the global conversation on nature-based solutions to climate change. I urge the Division of Environment and indeed the entire Assembly to approach the 30th of April 2026 commemoration with the full ambition of this opportunity in mind. Mr. Presiding Officer, I return to where I began. In 1776, those who held authority over the island made a decision that was ahead of its time. They chose the long view. They chose a common good over private interests, but chose the future over the present. 250 years later, we are the beneficiaries of that choice. The green canopy of the Mainridge that filters our rainwater, shelters our endemic species, anchors our soil, I like the word anchors, boy, anchors our soil, moderates our climate, and draws visitors from across the world to marvel at Tobago's natural beauty. The canopy exists because someone long before us chose wisely. This motion invites us to do the same, to choose wisely, to institutionalize that wisdom in the form of Mainridge Day, to mandate formal commemoration of the extraordinary milestone, to call on our national and international partners to stand with us. Mr. Presiding Officer, I support this motion. The safety of our people, the resilience of our communities, and the integrity of our land, all bound to the health of our Mainridge Reserve. We must build on the wisdom of the past with the tools of the present. Mr. Presiding Officer, I want to close by saying the world marvels at Tobago's natural beauty. And? Nice. Because we are rich in our culture. We have delicious cuisine, especially at harvest time, when you come patiently by me. Lovely beaches, our reefs, our waterfalls, the tranquil songs of nature, and we must not forget our Mainridge and our warm, resilient people of Tobago. That is why we are striving to become the greatest little island on this planet. Mr. Presiding Officer, I wish to thank you. I close by saying, thank you be to God.
Leader of Assembly Business.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. My colleagues and I are extremely cold in this house. My nose is actually running. I would ask that we have an opportunity to regulate the air temperature in this space before we continue, please.
Your concern has been noted. I've been trying to get it rectified quietly at the moment. So, being that it is, I would suspend the House for 15 minutes so that we can get it rectified.
It's that time again, Tobago, and this one is going to be big. April 30th, 2026 will mark the 250th anniversary of the main ridge being designated the oldest legally protected rainforest reserve in the Western Hemisphere. The commemoration of this milestone represents an opportunity for us to collectively reaffirm Tobago's leadership in environmental protection, climate resilience, and sustainable land management in the Caribbean and globally. Secretary of Environment, Climate Resilience and Energy, Darren Henry, will lay a motion seeking the approval of the House to declare April 30th as Main Ridge Day annually and create activities to formally observe the 250th anniversary of the legal protection of Tobago's rainforest. We convene on Wednesday, March 25th at 10 a.m. Our doors are open and channels are clear. You can either come in or tune in. Either way, don't miss this landmark event.
What I looking forward for my newborn? Well, I hear Chief Sex say, I think it's $500, but still up to now, I never really hear as to what is the procedure to get that, but I hold in the faith.
We are here in beautiful Scarborough asking the public their opinions on the motion for the upcoming International Women's Day debate, strengthening our childcare support systems for women and family. We're here talking to the average person, getting their feedback on how they feel about our childcare services and what we can do to do better for our women and our families.
I believe that they could open more free daycares. When I say free, I mean free. Well, the present Prime Minister she had a baby grant that they did cut the other day. That was a big help for plenty, yes, working mothers, because when you're out there and you have nobody to help you, sometimes you get paid and you ain't have to see where the money go.
It could make us too dependent, and we already have so much of a dependency syndrome. That's the bad. On the other side, things are expensive, and I know that it will help a lot of mothers.
What is your opinion in terms of the government brought about more government-assisted or free childcare services, or specifically daycare?
These days, you cannot leave your kids any and anywhere. You can't trust anybody, not even the neighbors, because there's so much incest and all these things happening nowadays that you can't really trust anybody. So I definitely agree with the daycare system being implemented on the jobs.
Because I am fortunate that I have my mom to be there for me. But there's a lot of young ladies today that don't have that support.
I think they can come up with a program that could help them the learning process to become a mom, because some of them are young mothers who doesn't know about motherhood or mother care now. And a program should help them to learn more about bringing up a family.
And there you have it. Remember, check us out live for the International Women's Day debate on the Legislature's Facebook and YouTube, Friday, 27th of March at 10 a.m.
It's that time again, Tobago, and this one is going to be big. April 30th, 2026 will mark the 250th anniversary of the Main Ridge being designated the oldest legally protected rainforest reserve in the Western Hemisphere. The commemoration of this milestone represents an opportunity for us to collectively reaffirm Tobago's leadership in environmental protection, climate resilience, and sustainable land management in the Caribbean and globally. Secretary of Environment, Climate Resilience and Energy, Darren Henry, will lay a motion seeking the approval of the House to declare April 30th as Main Ridge Day annually and create activities to formally observe the 250th anniversary of the legal protection of Tobago's rainforests. We convene on Wednesday.
What I looking forward for my newborn? Well, I hear Chief Sex say, I think it's $500, but still up to now, I never really hear as to what is the procedure to get that, but I hold in the faith.
We are here in beautiful Scarborough asking the public their opinions on the motion for the upcoming International Women's Day debate, strengthening our childcare support systems for women and family. We're here talking to the average person, getting their feedback on how they feel about our childcare services and what we can do to do better for our women and our families.
I believe that they could open more free daycares. When I say free, I mean free. Well, the present Prime Minister she had a baby grant that they did cut the other day. That was a big help for plenty, yes, working mothers, because when you're out there and you have nobody to help you, sometimes you get paid and you ain't have to see where the money go.
It could make us too dependent, and we already have so much of a dependency syndrome. That's the bad. On the other side, things are expensive, and I know that it will help a lot of mothers.
What is your opinion in terms of the government brought about more government-assisted or free childcare services, or specifically daycare?
These days, you cannot leave your kids any and anywhere. You can't trust anybody, not even the neighbors, because there's so much incest and all these things happening nowadays that you can't really trust anybody. So I definitely agree with the daycare system being implemented on the jobs.
Because I am fortunate that I had my mom to be there for me. But there's a lot of young ladies today that don't have that support.
I think they can come up with a program that could help them the learning process to become a mom, because some of them are young mothers who doesn't know about motherhood or mother caring now. And a program should help them to learn more about bringing up a family.
And there you have it. Remember, check us out live for the International Women's Day debate on the Legislature's Facebook and YouTube, Friday, 27th of March at 10 a.m.
It's that time again, Tobago, and this one is going to be big. April 30th, 2026 will mark the 250th anniversary of the Main Ridge being designated the oldest legally protected rainforest reserve in the Western Hemisphere. The commemoration of this milestone represents an opportunity for us to collectively reaffirm Tobago's leadership in environmental protection, climate resilience, and sustainable land management in the Caribbean and globally. Secretary of Environment, Climate Resilience and Energy, Darren Henry, will lay a motion seeking the approval of the House to declare April 30th as Main Ridge Day annually and create activities to formally observe the 250th anniversary of the legal protection of Tobago's rainforests. We convene on Wednesday, March 25th at 10 a.m. Our doors are open and channels are clear. You can either come in or tune in. Either way, don't miss this landmark event. It's that time again, Tobago, and this one is going to be big. April 30th, 2026 will mark the 250th anniversary of the Main Ridge being designated the oldest legally protected rainforest reserve in the Western Hemisphere. The commemoration of this milestone represents an opportunity for us to collectively reaffirm Tobago's leadership in environmental protection, climate resilience, and sustainable land management in the Caribbean and globally. Secretary of Environment, Climate Resilience and Energy, Darren Henry, will lay a motion seeking the approval of the House to declare April 30th as Main Ridge Day annually and create activities to formally observe the 250th anniversary of the legal protection of Tobago's rainforests. We convene on Wednesday, March 25th at 10 a.m. Our doors are open and channels are clear. You can either come in or tune in. Either way, don't miss this landmark event.
what I looking forward for my newborn. Well, I hear Chief Sec say, I think it's $500, but still up to now, I never really hear as to what is the procedure to get that, but I hold in the faith.
We are here in beautiful Scarborough asking the public their opinions on the motion for the upcoming International Women's Day debate, strengthening our childcare support systems for women and family. We're here talking to the average person, getting their feedback on how they feel about our childcare services and what we can do to do better for our women and our families.
I believe that they could open more free daycares. When I say free, I mean free. Well, the present Prime Minister she had a baby grant that they did cut the other day. That was a big help for plenty, yes, working mothers, because when you're out there and you have nobody to help you, sometimes you get paid and you ain't have to see where the money go.
It could make us too dependent, and we already have so much of a dependency syndrome. That's the bad. On the other side, things are expensive, and I know that it will help a lot of mothers.
What is your opinion in terms of the government brought about more government-assisted or free childcare services, or specifically daycare?
These days, you cannot leave your kids any and anywhere. You can't trust anybody, not even the neighbors, because there's so much incest and all these things happening nowadays that you can't really trust anybody. So I definitely agree with the daycare system being implemented on the jobs.
Because I am fortunate that I have my mom to be there for me. But there's a lot of young ladies today that don't have that support.
I think they can come up with a program that could help them the learning process to become a mom, because some of them are young mothers who doesn't know about motherhood or mother caring now. And a program should help them to learn more about bringing up a family.
And there you have it. Remember, check us out live for the International Women's Day debate on the Legislature's Facebook and YouTube, Friday, 27th of March at 10 a.m.
It's that time again, Tobago, and this one is going to be big. April 30th, 2026 will mark the 250th anniversary of the main ridge being designated the oldest legally protected rainforest reserve in the Western Hemisphere. The commemoration of this milestone represents an opportunity for us to collectively reaffirm Tobago's leadership in environmental protection, climate resilience, and sustainable land management in the Caribbean and globally. Secretary of Environment, Climate Resilience and Energy, Darren Henry, will lay a motion seeking the approval of the House to declare April 30th as Main Ridge Day annually and create activities to formally observe the 250th anniversary of the legal protection of Tobago's rainforest. We convene on Wednesday, March 25th at 10 a.m. Our doors are open and channels are...
Member for Palativale and Sumi Speyside, you may now join the debate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Presiding Officer. And I almost by error said otherwise, but happy to be here to join in this debate. And let me start by congratulating the member for Bethel New Grange on his maiden motion in this House. And perhaps it is quite fitting that this early in the game we are having a motion centered around very strong environmental issues and our desire to protect our environment. And perhaps that's where I should start. And I should start there because, as an island, we have grown impatient and, of course, wary of environmental agencies whose job it is to protect our environment, because in many ways, they have been weaponized against the development of Tobago to the extent that they have stymied our progress. But I want to be elusively clear that this administration believes that we can, in fact, protect our environment while simultaneously achieving the levels of development, and in particular infrastructural development, at the same time. Modern technology, new information, scientific information, can and has in fact allowed us the ability to do both at the same time. And we are having this debate, Mr. Presiding Officer, we'll have it die hard. We are having this debate, Mr. Presiding Officer, at a time when Tobago, like the rest of small island states in the Caribbean, are struggling with the impacts of climate change. We are struggling to be as climate resilient as we can in a world where we are certainly not, when I say we, I mean Tobago, not Trinidad and Tobago, but Tobago is not a significant contributor to the destruction of the global environment. Yet Tobago, little Tobago, is very often faced with the reality of having to put measures in place, shift priorities, shift spending, and reallocate it to treating with measures that speak to climate resilience. And perhaps us having this debate today is an opportune time for us to signal to our colleagues in Trinidad that they have to join us in this struggle to ensure that we find an equilibrium between development and protecting our environment. As a matter of fact, not so long ago, when I was a teacher of Caribbean studies at the secondary school level, there's a standard definition for sustainable development. That standard definition, through contextualization, says that sustainable development is being able to do the same things we are doing today 15 years from now. In other words, the way we live today, what we are able to do in our natural environment today, we should be able to do the same thing 15 years from now. And that's how you know you have sustainable development. And that's why the proud Adventist family could ask today, 15 years from now, will our children say iguanas? I sure I'm not guilty of eating any or cooking any. And my harvest has just come outside at the hunting season. So no fingers pointed at me, Mr. Presiding Officer. Are we certain that some of the animals that we interact with, that we eat, that we utilize, that we could find them, we could get them 15 years from now? 15 years from now, will our grandchildren have to look at a picture book to see what, when we picture book, but pull up their iPads to see what an iguana looks like, because people might have eaten them all. And that's not divorced from the broad context of this motion, which forces us 250 years later to refocus on our environment, to think about our environment, and to say to ourselves, ask ourselves, are we doing enough for environment? We heard earlier on from the Secretary for Tourism, who I'm sure spoke to how important a value proposition our environment is when it comes to marketing our island of Tobago. You go around the Caribbean and every single inch of coastline is taken up by some mega hotel somewhere. Jamaica is one of my favorite places, but there are some parts if you go jogging in the morning or walking in the morning, you wouldn't even know you're close to the coastline, because it's hotel after hotel after hotel blocking all the pathways to the coastline. We have something in Tobago that we can be proud of, that was started 250 years ago. And this administration, this Tobago House of Assembly, and the people of Tobago must be urged to remember what happened then in an effort to to ensure that we continue to protect what we have. Now, 1776, Mr. Presiding Officer, is a long time. That is long before the world spoke of climate change. And long before the world spoke of climate change, Tobago wrote into law a simple but profound truth. And that is that forests must stand so that our island may live. On the 30th of May that year, a law was assented to in Scarborough declaring that a tract of Tobago's mountainous interior would remain forever in woods, unalienable, preserved for the express purpose of attracting rainfall. It is not poetry, it was policy. It was not sentiment, it was survival. The framers of that law understood with remarkable clarity that without the forest, that there will be no water. Without water, no agriculture. Without agriculture, no economy, no settlement, and no future. And what is even more striking, Presiding Officer, is that this is not merely an imperial instruction imposed from afar. And I want us to pay attention to that. Nobody sat down in England and decided this is what Tobago would do. Nobody sat down in Europe and decided Tobago will protect its forests. In fact, Tobago sat down right here in Scarborough and took a decision right here in Scarborough to protect the forests and had it assented to right here in Scarborough. Now, let me pause on that point, because it would appear 250 years ago, people that looked like me and you, Mr. Presiding Officer, we had no freedoms. We had no political freedoms. We couldn't vote. We couldn't be in a house like this. But it would appear as though the parliament, the assembly that ruled Tobago then had more political freedoms and powers than the assembly we have today, when people that look like me and you ought to be free. And that to me is a striking irony in our existence as a country. And it's why sometime on Friday afternoon, the Prime Minister has agreed to meet with me so we can begin to finalize the timeline towards this is a new day, and we give thanks live, but finalize the timeline that we will utilize.
Member, allow me to take this opportunity to not only to remind members to put your phone on silent, but to those in the viewing gallery as well. Continue, member.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. But I was just making the point, is because of this striking irony, is because of how long we have been waiting since this island was forced into an arranged marriage with Trinidad, that we now see this matter of Tobago's autonomy as urgent, as emergent. And when I meet with the Prime Minister on Friday evening, it will be to establish a timeline that I will then report to Tobago on, that we are going to take some measurable actions in ensuring that we achieve this autonomy. And I pray God that the Parliament will work with the people of Tobago and not against the people of Tobago. You see, one of the things I have realized is that the people who are descendants of oppression often themselves become oppressors. Often themselves, when they yearned for independence from Europe, when this self-government and self-determination movement from Europe happened, the people who led such movement didn't really wish for freedom for all of its people. They just wanted to replace the white masters that ruled, and wanted themselves now become kings and queens and governors of all the survey. And that's why I always, at independence, reflect on the poem Parades by Derek Walcott, which really speaks to the fact that although things have changed, all we have done seemingly It's changed the face of the master that controls the land. But we are happy that today is a new day. And we are happy that we have a willing government at the central government that is willing to push through reforms that will reflect positively on what the people of Tobago desire. But I could not speak to this motion and not highlight that we had an assembly 250 years ago that passed this law that protected our rainforests for 250 years, and will probably protect it for 250 years more if God doesn't come before that. I certainly think he might come before that, the way the world going now. But it shows how great we can be when we are given autonomy. How Tobago, little Tobago, can be a leader in the world when we are given autonomy. Because there are just 10 points I wish to share, because I don't want to be guilty of keeping the house here longer than it should be here. But the first one that we must pay attention to is that this is pioneering law. That this may very well be the world's very first example of green legislation right here in Tobago, 250 years ago. And that is important because around the world, countries are scrambling to pass environmental laws. But here we have a perfect example from 250 years ago, with Tobago being a global leader in conservation thinking. And that is something that our tourism experts must use in promotion of the island of Tobago. We ain't faking it. We have been doing this primary school integrated science on how forests attract rainfall. And notwithstanding protecting the forests for 250 years, we see the challenges that we face with water. My colleagues from down in the west, you see why I like living in the countryside and living in the east and the north? My colleagues down in the west always complaining about not getting water sufficiently. I just late last year, we had some struggles up in Bethel, Bonaccord, Crown Point, plenty problems for water. Imagine if we did not protect this rainforest. Imagine if exploits were allowed there from 250 years ago. Imagine if townships were built in the heart of the rainforest. If cities were built in the rainforest, then we would struggle even more for water. And that shows how grounded in scientific understanding the law was. The law understood rainfall systems. It understood forests as a climate regulator, as a carbon sinkhole. The third point is that conservation is actually tied to economic survival. And I made the point earlier that sometimes we think we need one or the other, that we should not conserve because we need to survive economically. The truth is, conservation is tied to economic survival. One cannot go without the other. One can't go without the other. If we are to deplete all of our natural resources, we will all be poor and impoverished. All of us. So both things must happen together. They must go together. They must work together. The Act warned that deforestation, and I quote, will be highly injurious and ultimately destructive of plantations. Now, unfortunately, we had a plantation economy then. But they understood that the forest was essential to agriculture, it was essential to their revenue, and it was essential to national stability. And those things remain truthful today. And that's why we must do all we can to continue protecting this asset that we have been protecting for the last 250 years. The fourth point I wish to make is that the rainforest was permanently protected. And I want you to understand, it wasn't even for a period. They did not even put a sunset clause in the law. Because I reviewed the law, I've reviewed the law. And it says that the land was declared unalienably forever protected. In other words, for as long as we live in here, forever and a day is protected. The law also says that it could not be sold or privately owned. So nobody can own it. It's there in trust for all Tobagonians, all of us. And it's established a principle of perpetual environmental protection. And it is rare that law is made in this way. Because generally we make room for bad thinking and make room to change our minds. But 250 years ago, the legislators were saying, we're going to protect this forever and a day. The fifth point is the law eliminated all loopholes. The law says that any grant, deed, or permission was deemed as null and void to all intents and purposes. In other words, it don't matter what use you feel you have for the rainforest that is honorable. They were all deemed null and void and to all intents and purposes illegal. So I must wonder aloud whether or not it was legal to put a zip line in the rainforest. Because based on the law that governs this rainforest, there is no activity, no purpose that can be deemed legal there. No built facility that can be deemed legal there. Of course, with modern technology, we can very much appreciate the usefulness of allowing people to be able to see and explore the forest without having to walk through it, without having to trample on microorganisms, without having to destroy the environment. Is part of the asset that we are proud of and we should rightfully be boastful about. And as a government, I want to challenge, and as Chief Secretary, I want to challenge the Secretary for Tourism and the Secretary with responsibility for the environment to look at ways we can allow for the rainforest to be capitalized without destroying it, without having to exploit it. How can we explore it without exploiting it? That's the key. And it's very important, because if tourism is our natural competitive advantage, then just having the forest is good. But part of the economic benefit must be, how do we find ways for the visitor and the locals alike to explore it without exploiting it? And so, no, I'm not knocking having a zip line, because having a zip line might allow people to explore it without exploiting it. But I was just making the point that based on this law, 250 years ago, even that would be deemed illegal. And it's part of the reason why recently, when the Secretary for Tourism came with the proposal about introducing VRs, virtual reality headsets, I looked at the proposals, I said to them, go for it quickly. People should be able to go to the visitor center and sit there, put on the VR across their face, and view and explore parts of the forest that we don't want them walking in, that we don't want them going to. Be able to see the much talked about and researched saber-wing hummingbird without them having to pollute the environment to get to it. And it's the introduction of that kind of technology that can advance our tourism product. The sixth point I want to reference from this law is that strong enforcement mechanisms were embedded. And offenders faced court prosecution, they faced arrest and detention, and this law was meant to be enforced and not ignored. Let's ask ourselves today, when last somebody get locked up for damaging something in the forest? Every year we battle in bushfire because people indiscriminately causing fires to move from the margins of the protected area into the protected area. I sure if I drive between Bloody Bay and Roxborough in the morning, sometime late in the night, I sure I'm meeting hunters with dogs going through there. 100% hunters going inside there. And I know if I go to Tobago now, they're going to say, well, the chief only said that because you don't eat them things. But it's not about my diet and what I eat. It's really about what do we want from this asset? Do we want to keep protecting it and earning from it and protecting our livelihoods, protecting our farms, protecting the industries for our farmers, ensuring that our watershed is replenished annually? Or do we want the short-term gain of a bellyful? That is the question we have to ask ourselves. Because it's not like protein scarce here. Protein is not scarce here. Tatco full of chicken to sell. Fish still catching in the sea. Every day is fishing. Every day may not be catching there, but every day is fishing there. Fish still catching in the sea. And no, I have no objection other than my own religiosity over people's desire to eat bushmeat. But the point I want us to understand is that we have to be conscious and be measured and moderate in our utilization of the resources being provided by the rainforest. But back then, there were strong enforcement mechanisms. And that brings me to point number 7, which is interesting. At that time, Mr. Presiding Officer, the fine was £500 for the offense. 1776. 500 pounds, 1776. So I did some calculation considering inflation. In today's terms, that's approximately £106,000 as the fine. That's equivalent to 900,000 TT dollars. Approximately, that was the cost for encroaching and for doing anything destructive to the forest. By comparison, the fines under our existing laws today range between 5,000 TT and 50,000 TT in typical cases. So even today, by today's standards and the modern laws we have protecting our green assets here in Tobago, the fines are far less in terms of equivalence than the fines were in 1776. You sure they mean business? And we have a raging debate about whether traffic fines too much or not. I don't want to give anybody any ideas. Right? Because then why should they get excited? But the point is, in 1776, when people didn't walk about with credit cards, there were no cryptocurrency, they didn't have large wads of cash in their pocket, and people were buying things and spending shillings as opposed to pounds.
Remember, you have 5 minutes of speaking time remaining.
Sure. They were saying that they were going to charge £500 for the offense. And that is because they so didn't want people to offend and to destroy the enterprise there. The 8th point I want to make is that the state had a duty to actively defend the forest. The Attorney General then in the law was mandated to prosecute offenders. Environmental protection was a direct responsibility of the state. For too long, we have allowed environmental protection to only be a duty of NGOs and community-based organizations. So they have to talk when people say blue crab nothing. It's the NGOs, not the state. And I'm saying it is high time that we reverse that the state understands that it has a critical role in the protection of our forests. The 9th point is that exceptions were limited and tightly controlled. The exceptions were for fortifications, Of course, because in those days, everybody fighting war, and everybody want Tobago. So in case you had to put on a fort quick, they made an exception for that. Exception for public works. So public works will be things like utilities and so on. For roads, that was the exception in the 250-year law for roads. So that will explain how there's a road connecting Bloody Bay to Roxborough, for example. Why there's a road connecting Charlottesville to Lansome, for example. Because they made those sensible exceptions. In other words, environmental protection does not mean that we just walk around hugging trees, we leave them there, and we suffer ourselves to never have development. It simply means that our built development must coexist with the desire to protect the environment. And it must be measured. So we have a road going through the rainforest. Well, 2 major roads going through the rainforest. Right? And if we really should count, even that north side road, most of it is part of the rainforest assets because the main ridge is extensive. It includes even where Palatuvere is, part of the hills of Castara, all connected to the rainforest. But we have those roads. The development has been measured over the last 250 years and will continue to be measured. Because we're not looking to build skyscrapers in the rainforest. And the one building we built in the rainforest is off the grid, is made of timber, is very sustainable, is solar powered 100%. The only THA-owned property that is 100% off the grid is right there. That in itself speaks to the cohesion between protecting the forest and our built environment. Finally, this is a 250-year legacy of protection. I don't want us to think 250 years is 25 years, or 5 years, or 2 years. This is 250 years. Passed by the Council on the 5th of April, 1776, then by the Assembly on the 8th of April, 1776, assented to and became law on the 30th of April, 1776 in Scarborough. At one time, I don't know if people didn't understand the calligraphy of the time, but it was told that it was the 13th of April. That's an error. It was assented to on the 30th of April. The result, over 2.5 centuries of forest protection, the world's longest standing conservation success story. So, 250 years ago, Tobago did not hesitate to protect its forests.
Your speaking time has expired. Leader of Assembly Business.
Mr. Presiding Officer, I beg to move that the speaking time for the Chief Secretary be extended by a further 10 minutes.
Members, the question is that 10 minutes of additional speaking time be given to the member. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. Member, you have 10 minutes additional speaking time. You may continue your presentation.
Now, I was going to say I don't need it 10 minutes, but less than 10 minutes from now, I'm begging for more time. Let me not say that. But the point I was concluding on is that 250 years ago, Tobago did not hesitate to protect its green assets. Oftentimes in modern governance, we operate with a lot of hesitation, a lot of apprehension, a lot of wavering back and forth. Should we not? I wonder how people will think about it. I wonder if the public will support it or not. I wonder if they will vote me out because I have such stringent laws. This is a lesson, and I want to give a very clear signal to some of those who there misbehaving in the Boku Marine Park area, that politics or no politics, this government have to take decisive action to protect what's happening down there. Because that's an asset. That's a blue asset now. That's a blue asset now that is under threat because people don't know how to behave in the marine park. We have an example, a living example of what happened 250 years ago and how that has benefited us to this day. And if we're not careful, Mr. Presiding Officer, if we are not careful, we will end up with a situation when there is no economic activity in the Boku Marine Park area because it would have been destroyed completely. Destroyed completely. I hear people cussing and making noise because they say we're not allowing them to fet in the nylon pool and fet there in the night, but fet happening in Pigeon Point. And when I listened to it, I was tempted to comment, but I said, listen, time, no place, but absolute foolishness. How are you comparing people liming in Pigeon Point? On land in Pigeon Point, where the risk to the ecosystem is less, to people liming and fetting in the night inside the marine park. For God's sake, we had a death there last year. A death. And people don't understand what that means. Because when the drowning happened, when the injury happened to the visitor, I had to leave what I was doing, drop every other government piece of work, and be down at Gibson Jetty. I had to be calling family members around the world to relay the news that their father died tragically in the marine park space. I had to be talking to British High Commissioner. I had to be talking to the Grenadian diplomat here because the citizen that died was dual citizen of Grenada and the UK. People don't understand what that means. People don't understand what it means every time a vessel sinks in the area or is on fire or something happens. It destroys the very product that you're earning from. And no, this government is not saying people should not have tours, that people shouldn't have fun, that music can't play, and that they can't wind up in the water. That's not what we're saying. What we are saying is that we must become the first protectors of that asset. And I want to drive home the point that we have to protect our blue assets the same way we protected our green assets 250 years ago. And fun fact, Tobago has larger blue assets than we do have green assets. As large as that rainforest is in comparison to the 116 square miles we have, our blue assets, meaning our mangroves, our reef systems, our fish stock, the seas around us, we have more blue assets than we have green assets. Tobago has more water than the island. And so if we don't protect our blue assets, we are missing the opportunity to do carbon sequestration, meaning we are missing the opportunity to sell the fact that we're protecting it and earn from protecting it. We are destroying a legacy. We are doing a disservice to future generations. We are not future-proofing the island. We are not protecting the island's coastline when we do so. And so I cannot contribute to this motion, Mr. Presiding Officer, and end without drawing a stark comparison between what happened 250 years ago in the rainforest without hesitation, quite firmly, decisively, to the point that nobody in Tobago will argue that we should remove the protection. Everybody wanted to stay. Because we all see how we have benefited, how our lives and livelihoods grew because of it. I am saying at this juncture that we must do the same for our green assets. And so I want to urge, also our blue assets. And so I want to urge the Secretary with Responsibility for Environment, who is neighbor to the member for Boko, Mount Pleasant, and neighbor for the member for Bonacourt, Crown Point, that we work together to protect the assets there, so that the young men who benefit from the trade there can keep benefiting till they're old and grey. We don't want them to stop. We want them to make money. We want them to make money till they could buy Benz and Beamer and build big house and send their children to university and do wonderful things with their lives. But the only way to do that sustainably is to also protect the asset that they're benefiting from now. I went on a tour there recently, you know. I went on a tour there recently. I looked at the reef asset that's there. I am supposed to join the IMA in the replanting of some seagrass and so on in that project. So I'm very in tune with what's happening there. Let's just say, by comparison, I'm prouder from up in the east and northeast, because I could see stark differences in the quality and health of the reef systems between both places. But the reef assets in the southwest, of the southwest peninsula, is more extensive, is beautiful, is reachable, is easy to snorkel. You have to protect it. And so I hope that this motion, this reminder of what happened 250 years ago, will serve as an inspiration, Mr. Presiding Officer, to all of Tobago, an inspiration to keep protecting our environment as we build out the greatest city island on the planet, and even more so, an inspiration to press gas on our autonomy conversation and actions towards greater autonomy. Because if 250 years ago, Little Tobago could lead the world, 250 years later, I'm confident Little Tobago can continue to lead the world. Thank you.
Member for Bethel Newgrange, you may now wrap up the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. I would also like to thank all the Assembly members for their valuable contribution. Assembly Member Zarisha Hackett, Assembly Member Mr. Nigel Tate, and Assembly Member and Chief Secretary Mr. Farley Chavez Augustine for their valuable contribution towards this motion. I would also like to say thanks to all the hard-working officers and workers of the Department of Natural Resources and Forestry who have been toiling in the field, whose lives have been threatened, whose lives have been endangered by the type of work that they would have done in terms of protecting the forest reserve over a number of years, including myself. Having to face those challenges nobody else probably would want to face. So I want to say a special thanks to them for their contribution. Also, as we commemorate World Day of the Forest and also the 250 celebration of the Main Ridge Forest Reserve, which is a pioneer environmental legislation in 1776. Actually, that was the final legislation. It didn't start there. It actually started in 1765 by a parliamentarian Jennings, who his friend, Mr. Hales, who was a researcher, he tried to convince Hales that, hey, there's a correlation between trees and rainfall. So Mr. Jennings, who was the Minister of Plantation and Estate, he fought for 11 years, from 1765 to 1766, and that's where the legislation got proclaimed. He actually spent 11 years to convince his friends in Parliament that this is an important piece of legislation to be had. And thus we are now reaping all the benefits from the visionary thinking of these two gentlemen. One, research and decision go hand in hand, and we plan to continue the research so we can make informed decisions about our natural attributes here on the island. And I want to encourage all the members here, every single member of every division. And Mr. Presiding Officer, I may just have to invoke clause Standing Order 427 for a bit, just briefly. just want to let every division know about the relationship between the main ridge, Forest Reserve, and all the THA divisions. Office of the Chief Secretary, the reserve status as a heritage asset of national and international significance places it squarely within the Chief Secretary policy agenda. Community development and social protection. Yes, Mr. Pollard, I see you raise your head. The communities of Northeast Tobago depends directly on the reserve ecological integrity for their livelihoods and cultural integrity. Well, this one is for me, environment, climate resilience and energy. The reserve represents Tobago's most critical terrestrial ecosystem and the front line of the island's climate resilience strategy. Education, skills, and innovation, Mr. Kerr. The reserve offers an unparalleled living resource for environmental education, scientific research, and conservation skills development. Finance and trade, we'll get the message onto her. The reserve is a proven economic asset underpinning Tobago's ecotourism industry and green economy positioning. Food security, my good friend Wayne. As the island primary watershed, the reserve is fundamental to sustaining Tobago's freshwater supply and agricultural productivity. Health and wellness. The reserve role in securing clean water, clean air, and as an ethnobiological resource makes it a direct contributor to the health of Tobago's population. Housing and settlement, Mr. Joe Field. Responsible development and utility planning must safeguard the reserve boundaries against encroachment and degradation. Legal affairs. Robust legislative and regulatory frameworks remain essential to the reserve ongoing protection and international compliance obligation. Public infrastructure and transport. Trails and road infrastructure serving the reserve must balance public access with the imperative to minimize ecological disturbance. Strategic planning and development. Long-term sustainable use of the reserve must be embedded in Tobago's spatial and development planning framework. Tourism, antiquities, and creative industries. My good friend Percy and Ms. Hackett. As the Western Hemisphere's oldest legally protected forest and a UNESCO biosphere reserve, the main ridge is Tobago's foremost ecotourism asset. Youth empowerment and sport. The reserve provides an ideal environment for youth engagement in outdoor recreation, environmental stewardship, and conservation careers. We all would have discussed all the benefits of the Main Ridge Forest Reserve, all the attributes, all the potential benefits to this island. And I want to thank each member here for supporting the motion and for all of us to participate in the activities that this motion will provide for all of us here to get involved in the celebration as we continue up to the date, the 30th of April, which is the anniversary date of the Main Ridge Forest Reserve. And I stand here as a proud Tobagonian. I feel proud to be a Tobagonian, to know that this small real estate Tobago was part of the first ever conservation effort in the Western Hemisphere. Mr. Presiding Officer, I thank you.
Members, the question put is, whereas Tobago is home to the oldest legally protected rainforest reserve in the Western Hemisphere, established by law on the 30th of April, 1776, representing a pioneering act of environmental conservation. And whereas this historic legislation affirmed the intrinsic value of Tobago's Main Ridge Forest Reserve as a vital ecological asset, safeguarding biodiversity, water resources, climate stability, and the cultural heritage of the people of Tobago. And whereas for 250 years, the protection of the rainforest has contributed to Tobago's identity as a steward of nature, supporting livelihoods through ecotourism, research education, and sustainable development. And whereas the commemoration of this milestone on 30th April 2026 presents an opportunity to reaffirm Tobago's leadership in environmental protection, climate resilience, and sustainable land management in the Caribbean and globally. And whereas it is fitting that the Tobago House of Assembly recognizes, celebrates, and institutionalizes this milestone in a manner that inspires present and future generations to continue the legacy of conservation. Be it resolved that the Tobago House of Assembly mandates the Division of Environment, Climate Resilience, and Energy, in collaboration with relevant stakeholders, to design and implement a suite of activities to formally commemorate the 250th anniversary of the legal protection of Tobago's rainforest on 30th April 2026. And be it resolved that the House establishes the 30th April annually as Mainridge Day in Tobago, commemorating the 1776 legislation and promoting environmental stewardship among all citizens. And be it further resolved that this Honourable House calls upon the Government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, regional partners, and international environmental organizations to recognize the support Tobago's historic and ongoing leadership in rainforest. Oh dear, a few conversations. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any against, say no. The ayes have it. Motion carried.
Motion for adjournment.
Leader of Assembly Business.
Mr. Presiding Officer, I beg to move that this House now stands adjourned for a date to be fixed.
Members, the question put is that this House now stands adjourned for a date to be fixed. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any against, say no. The ayes have it. This House now stands adjourned to a date to be fixed. Good afternoon, everyone.
What I looking forward for my newborn? Well, I hear Chief Sec say. I think it's $500, but still up to now, I never really hear as to what is the procedure to get that, but I hold in the faith.
We are here in beautiful Scarborough asking the public their opinions on the motion for the upcoming International Women's Day debate, strengthening our childcare support systems for women and family. We're here talking to the average person, getting their feedback on how they feel about our childcare services and what we can do to do better for our women and our families.
I believe that they could open more free daycares. When I say free, I mean free. Well, the present Prime Minister she had a baby grant that they did cut the other day. That was a big help for plenty, yes, working mothers, because when you're out there and you have nobody to help you, sometimes you get paid and you ain't have to see where the money go.
It could make us too dependent, and we already have so much of a dependency syndrome. That's the bad. On the other side, things are expensive, and I know that it will help a lot of mothers.
What is your opinion in terms of the government brought about more government-assisted or free childcare services, or specifically daycare?
These days, you cannot leave your kids any and anywhere. You can't trust anybody, not even the neighbors, because there's so much incest and all these things happening nowadays that you can't really trust anybody. So I definitely agree with the daycare system being implemented on the jobs.
Because I am fortunate that I have my mom to be there for me. But there's a lot of young ladies today that don't have that support.
I think they can come up with a program that could help them the learning process to become a mom, because some of them are young mothers who doesn't know about motherhood or mother caring now. And a program should help them to learn more about bringing up a family.
And there you have it. Remember, check us out live for the International Women's Day debate on the Legislature's Facebook and YouTube, Friday, 27th of March at 10 a.m.
It's that time again, Tobago, and this one is going to be big. April 30th, 2026 will mark the 250th anniversary of the Main Ridge being designated the oldest legally protected rainforest reserve in the Western Hemisphere. The commemoration of this milestone represents an opportunity for us to collectively reaffirm Tobago's leadership in environmental protection, climate resilience, and sustainable land management in the Caribbean and globally. Secretary of Environment, Climate Resilience and Energy, Darren Henry, will lay a motion seeking the approval of the House to declare April 30th as Main Ridge Day annually and create activities to formally observe the 250th anniversary of the legal protection of Tobago's rainforests. We convene on Wednesday, March 25th at 10 a.m. Our doors are open and channels are clear. You can either come in or tune in. Either way, don't miss this landmark event.